This is the Podcast Express, and we're talking to whoever's listening out there. You're listening to 5 Minutes of Trouble, the only podcast on the internet that discusses the John Carpenter film Big Trouble in Little China 5 minutes at a time. I'm Josh Horowitz, and my co-host is here.
I'm Brett Stillo, and this is exciting. I'm actually in the same room.
That's right.
Horowitz.
Yes, we are here in glorious Pasadena, California.
Welcome to downtown Pasadena. We're just across the street from Pasadena City College.
And what is this place that we're in?
Is this a plug? Hopefully I'll get a room discount, but we're at the Saga Motor Lodge.
That's right. For all your great hotel needs.
I think we're a little early for the Rose Parade. I haven't seen one float today, not one single horse with, a silver saddle. So when's that going to happen, Josh?
I don't know, but we are here to talk about Big Trouble, so we'll get back to that.
We'll talk about that. We'll save the parade for later. But welcome to Pasadena. Like I said, this is actually the first time Josh and I have met face to face.
That's right.
And it's pretty fun. So here we are.
Here we are, and we are discussing minutes 5 through 10 of Big Trouble in Little China. Minute 5 begins with the credit for production designer John J. Lloyd as the Pork Chop Express arrives at the dock, and it ends with an airplane arriving and Miao Yin looking out the window. This is the first time that we get to discuss a new character here, Miao Yin, who is played by actress Susie Pai. We'll get to her in a little bit.
Now, I can't remember, like the last podcast that feels like it was 2 years ago. Did we talk about Mr. John J. Lloyd?
We started to talk about John J. Lloyd, production designer who he just passed away, actually, in 2014 at the age of 92. He was the set designer for the film. He was called upon to recreate Chinatown as sets as opposed to actually shooting it on location. And that's kind of what added to the budget, the $25 million plus budget, which unfortunately meant that the film didn't make as much money as it would have liked to during its theatrical run.
I did not realize John J. Lloyd was that old. I figured, like a lot of the people who worked on Carpenter movies, they all tended to be, at that point in their 30s or 40s. So John J. Lloyd, I imagine, was a Hollywood stalwart.
Yeah. So what does that make him? He was 60 or something when he did it. Yeah.
So this shows I didn't do my homework. Sorry, John J. Lloyd.
Well, I did my homework. Actually, some of this stuff I got from the Big Trouble in Little China press kit. Turns out that he previously worked on John Carpenter's The Thing. And according to the press kit, he said that time was a challenge on this one because although the market and the airport were shot on location, about 90% of the film settings were built on the 20th Century Fox sound stages. And we'll get a chance to see some of those when we get to the alley scenes coming up.
I would imagine that as we're pulling into the market, I was watching this and thinking it looks so real, and yet it can't be because you've got the rain falling perfectly, and everything looks, it's nighttime. So I imagine this is probably, as much as this looks like some, dockside San Francisco, market, I'll bet you this was on the Fox lot somewhere.
Well, you would think so, but according to the press kit, it says that the market, that was on location. So that was actual San Francisco. The question is where. You're from San Francisco, so you'd probably have a better sense of where that could have been filmed.
Oh yeah. So I'm 0 for 2. I'm a bad podcaster.
No, you're doing great.
Yeah, that would probably be somewhere. Or what's there now is probably the ballpark. It's a giant stadium. But, that would have been, down by the waterfront, not too far from Fisherman's Wharf. Mm-hmm. Just as a quick aside, a stylistic note, we were talking about Rio Bravo and Howard Hawks, and this scene, reminds me of a classic old noir movie called Thieves Highway, also set in a loading dock in San Francisco. It might have even been the same loading dock, but that's a classic 1940s noir action thriller featuring a truck driver who arrives in San Francisco. So I'll bet you John Carpenter, the director of this movie, haven't heard of him, but I'll bet you he did his homework there, and maybe it's a little nod to Thieves Highway.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. All right. But let me see. Looking down the list of stuff about this minute, I mean, it does start out where there's a lot of gambling, a lot of Jack Burton that's going on. There are 2 gambling games that happen here, and I thought I'd take a moment to kind of discuss some of this stuff. So the first one, and he mentions the name, this is the Chinese gambling game of Fan Tan. And so what is the thing about Fan Tan? Well, according to Wikipedia, Fan Tan was very popular in 19th century San Francisco Chinatown.
Mm-hmm.
So there's your tie-in to the original Weinstein-Goldman script, potentially. How is it played? Well, the Tan Kun, or the croupier, grabs a double handful of beans and places them in the center of the table. And then he covers the beans with a bowl that's called the Tan Koi. Players bet on the numbers 1 through 4, or they bet on even versus odd, and that's what they're doing. In this case, you'll hear that Wang is saying even. And once the betting is done, the bowl is lifted, and then the Tan Kun uses chopsticks to remove the beans 4 at a time until the final batch is reached. And then the number of beans left on the final batch, that's what wins for the table. Usually it's a number 4, 3, 2, or 1, or it's even or odd. And so in this case, Wang bets even, and so Wang lost, and presumably Jack Burton won when the 3 came up, which was odd. So there's your analysis on the Fan Tan. 5 minutes of Fan Tan.
5 minutes of Fan Tan. I love the sequence. And yeah, you can definitely see where this is a bit of a carryover from that original Western script. I mean, yeah, you can picture this being in Gold Rush Chinatown.
Yeah.
The way that the Wang's dressed, okay, granted he's got a leather jacket, but his hat, and the way Jack's dressed, I never really thought of it. Like, Jack looks like a refugee from a Renaissance fair in this movie. But again, I wonder if there's costume-wise, there's a little carryover from the Western script. Like you could with those moccasins of Jack and his jeans, you can just put a gun belt and a hat on him, and take away his baseball cap or his trucker cap and his dark glasses, and maybe give him a Clint Eastwood serape, and we're off. So yeah, this one's easy to imagine. And Wang talking about his girl coming from China. It's a little more 1852 than 1986.
Well, there's that callback, and Wang does have an interesting outfit. I mean, yeah, he's wearing a fedora.
Yeah,
Indiana Jones, perhaps.
Little, yeah. The 80s were a great time for hats.
Yeah.
It was the return of the fedora. Indy kind of started it off, but Duran Duran.
Yep.
Yeah, you could say Wang is just a really big Simon Le Bon fan too, but it just seems like everybody was donning a fedora for various reasons.
Yeah, no, he has an interesting outfit. He's got the fedora, the scarf, the skinny 80s tie.
Yeah.
And the Dragon of the Blackpool Letterman jacket. Yeah, that's a very, very neat jacket. We'll come upon the Dragon of the Blackpool restaurant later.
I also call this scene the last time that Jack is cool. Because again, early on, we're kind of, this movie's, maybe it's deceiving us, and it's trying, you're trying to find a tone. And in this scene, yeah, Jack definitely seems like he's the hero. Wang's the sidekick. He's being a little goofy. He loses the bet. And, he's got his bluster here, but it's, and again, it's kind of that classic John Wayne. Okay. All right. You owe me. You got to pay up now.
Yeah.
And, Wang's begging him, oh, come on, come to the airport with me. It's, I'm in love with this girl. And, we see, when I originally saw this, I was just like, okay, Kurt Russell's the hero. Dennis Dunn is the sidekick. That's the way it's done. That's the way it's going to be.
But not the original intent. And actually, let's talk briefly about Dennis Dunn playing Wang Chi. So, yeah, you think he's a sidekick, but he's arguably the real hero of the story. I mean, he's the one who needs to get his girl back, and he asks Jack to come along for the ride. Though, as we'll see as we discuss the minutes a couple minutes later, that he's kind of a reluctant hero in this case. Jack Burton is, if you can call him that. But back to Dennis Dunn, he started out as a stage actor in San Francisco before he got his first role as an undercover cop in the movie Year of the Dragon.
Year of the Dragon.
Have you seen this? I haven't seen this movie.
Year of the Dragon I saw a long time ago. And, Michael Cimino, it was it's very interesting, the timing. that you have a movie that features Asian American actors. They're prominent. And, Year the Dragon was just the year before. It was kind of controversial because of the violence and sexuality back then. It was also, Michael Cimino's a comeback attempt after the debacle of Heaven's Gate. So, but yeah, a very different movie. And yet, I remember, or actually just, watching this 5-minute segment, again, the tone is not set. This seems like it's going to be more of a traditional, straightforward action movie. And yeah, with Dennis Dunn there, you're thinking, well, maybe this is going to be kind of like another Year of the Dragon. Maybe not as heavy, maybe not as dark, but it's going to be a far grittier movie. It's sure not going to be wacky.
Well, he did other roles as well. He played in The Last Emperor. That one I did see. I don't remember his role in it, though. And then a TV series called Midnight Caller.
Yeah.
You were mentioning that one when we were talking offline before, Brett.
Yeah. That was, and it's funny. I forget. I think I saw Dennis Dunn just in a restaurant or on the street somewhere like some 30 plus years ago. This Midnight Caller was filmed in San Francisco. Gary Cole was the star. And, really quick, I think he was like an ex-cop who became a midnight radio show host who solved crimes. I guess it's so TV. It's like I used to be a cop. Now I'm a gardener, and I solve crimes in my spare time. And Dennis Dunn was the engineer or producer of a show. And I just kind of recall, hey, there's that guy from Midnight Caller, and not probably forgetting that he was in Big Trouble in Little China. So that's it. That's my brush with stardom. That's all I got. I gotta go.
And now he basically had a recurring part in the Dustin Hoffman HBO series Luck, and he just takes kind of smaller roles these days.
It's funny. Like, if you picture Dennis Dunn, picture James Hong. Dennis Dunn is 30 years older. Is he now playing James Hong roles?
Well, I don't know. James Hong, he's kind of in a whole class by himself.
He is.
Just the number of roles that he's done. He's actually known as the Man of 1,000 Faces. On his own website. Indeed. But we'll get to him. He certainly has a lot of screen time coming up. One thing I forgot to mention in here. John Carpenter makes a cameo. I don't know if he does this in every single of his films, but it is him. If you look around the 6-minute mark, you actually see somebody pushing a crate of chickens wearing a beanie on for about 5 seconds, and that's Carpenter.
I kind of wondered if that was anybody pushing the cart. And, we went back and watched it, and, it's a very subtle cameo because he's in the shadows. It's not like a Hitchcock cameo, but you kind of see him in profile in his silhouette. And it's like, it looks like John Carpenter. Okay, there we go. Yeah, I'll have to look that up. I know he's in his very first movie, Dark Star. He has an interesting little cameo in that. But
who'd he play in Dark Star?
He was...
Or is he just somebody walking in the background?
He was the voice of Doolittle. No, was it Doolittle? The Talby. If you've ever seen Dark Star, there's the navigator who just sits in the dome, all day long. And real quick story, that was a fellow film student at USC. He was Italian, so he had this thick accent.
Okay.
And so, they did ADR, and that's whenever that character speaks, that's Carpenter's voice, actually.
Nice.
And they do a little. Is that you? He's kind of making this. His voice is crackling a little bit intentionally. So that is a definite John Carpenter cameo.
That's another movie I have to see. I must admit that while I've seen Big Trouble in Little China enough times, the other Carpenter films not as much. I have seen They Live a few times, and
great one.
I saw Escape from New York. I've seen and L.A. Not as good. And The Thing. But aside from that, no, I haven't seen some of the other ones.
That's pretty good. I mean, that's most of the great Carpenter movies. So you're doing all right.
All right.
We won't call John yet.
But back to Trouble. We just got through Fan-Tan, and then I bet you're all dying to know what the second game is that they're playing, and I have that info as well. It's called Tien Gow.
Wow. So that's an actual game. That's not some
yeah.
W.D. Richter fantasy. So that's okay. Tell me about this game.
So Tien Gow is a 4-player Chinese dice or domino game, and it means heaven and nine. And it's played in 2 suits. The dominoes are 1-1 through 6-6. There are 2 suits called civilian and military. Players get 8 dominoes and try to play their highest value dominoes based on the first played domino and its suit. So when Jack shouts out heaven and earth, and he wins the hand with a 6-6-1-1, that happens to be the strongest dominoes that you can get in the civilian suit. And the last note I had about this one is that the casino game of Pai Gow takes some elements of this game called Tien Gow.
That's so cool.
So there it is.
Is it you think this is just a fun movie, but you're learning stuff.
That's right.
The next time you're in a gambling hall in Macau, you're going to do okay. And you'll have us to thank. Thank you, Josh.
My pleasure. So we got through the gambling, and then what happens? The famous bottle bet.
Yes.
I guess the question that I had here is that if this happened in real life, what would actually happen to a bottle? Would it jump like that? Would it shatter? Is it actually possible to break a bottle in half with a machete? And how did they actually accomplish this stunt? What do you think, Brett?
Wow, that's a really good question. I kind of feel like, there are so many things we see in movies that are unbelievable, or like, that would never happen in real life. And then you find in an interview with the screenwriter, there's probably some basis in truth. Carpenter or Richter, had an experience, or maybe it goes back to the original screenplay that, that seems to me that could be like a 1 in a million kind of a shot.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, it's an interesting little bit because we've seen a little bit of magic, a little bit of blue spark.
Mm-hmm.
So we know it's around.
Well, the magic in this case comes from Jack Burton. We get our first instance of his magic sort of really good reflexes.
Yeah.
And he says his iconic line, it's all in the reflexes.
Yeah, and again, you're thinking...
It's a cool moment.
Yeah, that's, like I said, this is the last time Jack's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Because he seems like he's going to be that guy who, catches the knife in midair.
Mm-hmm.
Throw me the whip or whatever.
I seem to recall that, I don't know if there was some discussion about this on the DVD commentary or where exactly I heard it, but in the original version of the screenplay, the Western version,
mm-hmm.
that instead of using a machete to try to cut a bottle in half, I believe that it was a gunslinger type trick where he was trying to shoot a bottle and somehow it missed or something, and it was still like the whole reflexes thing, but the bottle bet was in place. And it just sort of got adapted for more modern times.
Yeah. This also reminds me of like something you'd see in a spaghetti Western.
Mm-hmm.
Where, you have, someone has incredible reflexes. It's a superhuman action in a very normal setting.
Yeah.
As normal as gambling in a dockyard in Chinatown can be. But
I was curious to see if anybody's actually tried doing this. I went on YouTube, and there are 2 videos, both of very stupid people trying to do this and failing miserably. Apparently, the only real way that you're able to cut a bottle in half, you kind of need heat and chemicals. You can't just cut it like that. Other things to mention here, this bottle bet is the film's trigger. I mean, Jack getting his money for this bet, that's the setup for all the trouble in the film.
Yeah.
If the bet had been won by Wang, it would have been a very short movie.
10-minute movie,
Yep.
our second and last episode.
It would have been a very short podcast. The line I like here is what Wang says right after. He's like, "Oh, it always works at home."
Yeah.
Great line.
You gotta credit Dennis Dunn with the setup.
Mm-hmm.
Like, his delivery, his intensity, it's like you think, wow,
I mean, he's pissed.
Yeah.
I mean, I think part of it is, you can see he's been drinking and he's been losing at gambling, and, he slams the bottle down. You think, are they going to start fighting at this point?
Yeah. Yeah. You don't know really who Wang is. You don't know their relationship. Is, friend or foe.
Mm-hmm.
And, so the intensity delivers that dialogue. There is like, wow, can this guy actually pull this off? You know, you think, okay, well, let's see what happens. And then, you know, the gag goes totally south. And yeah, it makes Jack look like he's going to be the superhero in this one. So again, it's just like right here, this moment, it's very much, I think, you know, Wang is going to be an older, slightly taller short round. And, you know, Jack's going to just, you know, make his way through this laconically and, you know, delivering one-liners and, you know, mumbling cool lines. And, but that, yeah, as we keep saying, that's all going to change.
Oh, yes. But moving on in the minutes. So they've just finished the bet and they're going to go to the airport. Now, the thing to notice here is that Wang has a truck. He actually has an old black and white Buick that he's about to go in, and then Jack says, no, I'll give you a left. And I guess the question here is, here's another place where it might be a convergence of the timeline. You know, how would the film have been different if they took two separate vehicles? You know, and it wasn't just Jack's truck going in that alleyway. You know, and then maybe he wouldn't lose a truck. I mean, all these what ifs. But,
no, you know, it's just good screenwriting. You know, Richter has enough little plants so that, you know, Jack's in it. There's no way he can get out. I think the minute he catches that bottle, he's screwed. But you know, one nice thing about Big Trouble in Little China, you know, in countless action movies, there's the scene where, you know, somebody says to the hero, here's the quest, here's the adventure. And the hero says, I'm not going to do it. No. And then they have something to pull the character around, you know, blackmail.
Yeah, the reluctant hero.
You know, the reluctant hero. But in this one, they don't have that scene. Well, you don't have a scene where Jack's, okay, that's it, I'm out of here.
Well, sort of. I mean, there's one part that's going to come up later in the alley where he's confronted with the what is it? The Lords of Death, and he's like, all right, Wang, I'm going home. Keep your money.
Yeah. Yeah, but at that, he's so committed. He's still so committed. I mean, that's you know, we're getting a little far ahead.
Yeah.
But Jack, you know, Richter has structured it so Jack can't really ever get away. There's nobody, you know, Egg doesn't have to say, search your conscience. You know.
Yeah. Well, his big impetus right now, it's going to be getting his money. Later, it's going to be getting his truck back.
Yeah. And so say what you will about Jack Burton, he's a very motivated character.
That's true. Other little things to mention. Notice on the side of his truck, it says Jack Burton Trucking, Visalia, California. Have you ever been to Visalia?
I have been to Visalia. And there are people there today who look exactly like Jack Burton. I'd say, yeah, I'm a bit of an authority on the Central Valley. For those of you who don't know, Visalia, that's south of Fresno, north of Bakersfield. Maybe that's all you have to say. But it's the Central California, which is far different from coastal California, where we are. Far different from, say, Pasadena.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah, so that's a good place for a guy to have a truck and to be a trucker. So,
yeah, I have a story about Visalia. There was a time when I was gonna go on a trip with my wife up in the mountains, and there was a freak snowstorm that happened in April, and so we weren't able to get up the mountain, and so we ended up just spending time in lovely Visalia, which was the only place nearby that had affordable hotel to stay in.
Wow.
That's the Visalia story.
Then that's about it. I think there's there used to be a restaurant that was an old converted Air Force bomber.
Whoa.
So you could sit you'd sit in the plane and, you know, have your meal. I don't know if it's still there anymore, but
in Visalia.
I think it's in Visalia, but that's it. I mean, there's probably other famous Visalians, but we'll save that for another podcast.
And this has been 5 minutes of Visalia, folks.
If you know of any famous Visalians, which sounds like a Star Trek race, doesn't it? Yes, Captain, the Visalians are a provocative race. But yeah, let us know if there's any famous Visalians. We'll take it all back. We'll write to the Visalia Chamber of Commerce with an apologize. So, but
So that's Visalia. Now we're on the truck.
On the truck.
A little note about, I guess, the route that they're taking to get to the airport. So from what I've read on the internet, they say that that scene when they're driving was filmed on the 280 extension.
Yeah.
Which is a short length of interstate that runs along the China Basin section of San Francisco from Highway 101 north to the south of the market area.
Yeah, and that's, I think, as I recall, that was part of the 280 extension. That was part of the old Embarcadero freeway, which isn't there anymore. It was a bit of an eyesore.
Yeah.
But yeah, thanks to the Loma Prieta earthquake of 1989, that all got torn down. So it makes the skyline of San Francisco better. It makes getting around a little harder though. It's you look at that scene of Jack taking the Pork Chop Express to the airport with no traffic.
That's right, no traffic.
Zero traffic back
Magic
then.
of movie making.
Total magic of movie making. Going to the airport from downtown San Francisco to San Francisco International Airport, that's a 3-day journey now. You need 200 gallons of gasoline.
And I thought LA traffic was bad.
Now you have thick traffic here, but you've been dealing with it for 60 years. We're so far behind with traffic. This has been 5 minutes of traffic.
And then what happens? Then we get Wang telling his American dream story to Jack about how he bled his fingers to the bone, and notice that Jack is yawning.
Yeah, I mean, again, that's some of his bravado, or that that's why we love him.
Yeah. More of that is when Wang starts to explain why he failed in his bottle attempt. He says, "Oh yeah, his mind and spirit are going north and south," and then Jack's reaction is pretty great.
But that's interesting also because I mean, again, I just want to jump ahead to minute 50, but Wang changes throughout this movie, and I think in the beginning, his mind and his spirit are not in sync. Because later on, he is focused, and we're going to see a far different Wang. Different Wang.
There's a lot more on the line later in the film. After Miao Yin gets kidnapped. Spoilers.
I mean, it kind of makes sense with what's going to happen. We'll talk about that in the next episode.
Actually, here is a good segue into Miao Yin, played by Susie Pai. So some info about her. Sue Frances Pai was born August of 1962, so that makes her about 23 when Big Trouble in Little China was being filmed. And she's an actress, model, and former January 1981 Penthouse pet.
Okay, I got some internet searching to do.
She acted in a 1981 Burt Reynolds crime movie called Sharky's Machine and was in a deleted scene from the Rambo movie First Blood.
Wow.
Aside from that, not much acting credit.
I think I remember her in Sharky's Machine.
I've never heard of that movie before I was looking this up. Do you know about that one?
Sharky's Machine, that's I could say that's one of my favorite Burt Reynolds movies.
Really?
A very gritty crime drama that's a riff on the old noir film Laura, but that's another story. Maybe we'll do 5 minutes of Sharky's Machine. 5-minute machine. But Susie Pai. Now, I hope I'm not jumping the gun. I think I've read that those are actually contacts she's wearing. Her eyes were not blue.
Yes. Green.
Or green. That's right, green.
Yeah. I do not think that Chinese girls come in green eyes. Maybe if there are any of our audience out there who wants to contradict this and actually know of Asians with green eyes, please let us know. But they are definitely contacts. And Kim Cattrall, who we'll see later, also didn't have green eyes, also wore contacts for the role.
The things you got to do.
Yeah.
What is Susie Pai doing now? Any word on that?
I wasn't able to find too much.
Okay, but
just living her life, man.
Very, very striking actress.
Mm-hmm.
And does she have any lines in this?
Not much.
Okay.
I think she says yes at one point.
Okay.
She had more lines in the original screenplay, and some of those lines will come in the next discussion that we have of the minutes, so I'll mention it a little bit. But yeah, not many lines. Okay. She's just she's there, and she's one of the main MacGuffins, I guess you would call it, of the film.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
The actual name Miao Yin, according to Internet Movie Database, translates to cat-like, which makes sense since she's got green eyes, right?
Green-eyed cat, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think I might refer to her as the green-eyed MacGuffin. That's a catchy one. The green-eyed MacGuffin.
The green-eyed MacGuffin. Yeah. I like that.
Yeah, if you like that one, folks, we'll make it into a T-shirt.
Let's see, wrapping it up here. They get to the airport. You see Miao Yin and her green eyes as she's exiting she's just about to get off the plane, and then the minutes end.
Oh.
We've reached the end of our discussion during this podcast.
Oh, this is good because this is a cliffhanger.
What's going to happen?
You don't want to miss. Our next episode, because that's when something hits a fan. I'm not going to say what, but things start to hit a fan.
It definitely does.
And we might see a Trans Am if we're lucky. If you're lucky, we'll talk about Trans Ams next week. But so that was 5 minutes of trouble for this week.
There's your 5 minutes of trouble. Just want to get to a couple of plugs here. Just please visit us at 5minutesoftrouble.com and leave us comments, suggestions, or if you've got cool stuff to say, just say hi. You can also check us out on Facebook at 5 Minutes of Trouble and Twitter at 5 Minutes Trouble. And please tell your friends about this podcast. Give us a nice rating on iTunes. It really helps us out. Lastly, wanted to make a shout out one more time to the Star Wars Minute for helping start this format, as well as our friends at the Indiana Jones Minute. Please listen to their stuff. Really good things.
Indeed.
Any last words here, Brett?
No, I think we're good. You know, we're thank you, Pasadena, for hosting us.
Yes, the lovely Saga Motor Hotel. Be sure to come on by next time you're in Pasadena.
Exactly. Make a reservation now for the Rose Parade in January of 2017, and I guess we'll take it on the road. Next week we might be Oxnard, or I think actually Visalia. I think we're on our way to Visalia next.
Visalia.
For 5 minutes of Visalia. So that's it.
All right. So this is the Podcast Express signing off. Tune in next week for another 5 minutes of trouble.
Indeed.